frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're very fortunate to have Governor Bredesen in office this year. He's a very responsible individual, and I know he's going to have to address some cuts. I know he will do it as fairly and as judiciously and in the best interest of Tennessee. But I truly believe, from my banking background, I've met with the Federal Reserve, and I believe that is probably the best prognosticator you've got out there for what the economy is going to do. And every one of them say that we're either right at the bottom or at the cusp of it, and that things are going to start to turn up. So that won't help Governor Bredesen with this year's budget. But whoever the next governor is, and I plan that to be me, I think you will see that they will have a revenue situation that after this year's budget will be much, much better. Now, I'm not Pollyanna. I don't think that things are going to turn rosy all at once, and that there's going to be a lot of revenue, particularly to address some of the cuts I think that will be coming this year. But I do think that the state is going to turn around. I think the country is getting ready to turn around. I think we've really been through a worse recession than a lot of people realize, and I believe things are going to start to turn back up. But the bottom line is, I think Governor Bredesen will lead this state and leave it in such a way that you will have the revenue stream to address the reoccurring expenses out there because of his responsibility. You know, we're not the state of California. They don't go out there and just spend money in that way. We've always been a non-debt state, and I'm proud of the past governors we've had and the good job they've done. And I pledge to you that I will be, as a future governor, I will be responsible in that regard as well.
Sir, you mentioned one of the tenets of your campaign is education, and you mentioned that you thought that we needed to shorten the time in higher ed and lessen the burden to students on higher ed. What are your thoughts about how to do that?
You know I sound like Lamar Alexander. He wrote that article that was in Newsweek. If you look at higher ed, there was a study this summer that concluded that we were the third from the bottom. I think it was Arkansas and Louisiana that had a lower percentage of graduation rates from higher ed institutions. Frankly, I always thought that you were supposed to get through in 4 years. This was over a 6-year period of time. And I believe we've got to work with our higher ed institutions to make sure that the courses are available, because I understand that one of the problems with graduating at a 4-year institute is making sure that you've got the curriculum and the courses that are available to allow you to graduate with your major. Now, I know some people switch majors during the course of that, but we've got to make sure that we've got the courses available to those students. I am not at all adverse to the idea of using technology and broadband and those kind of courses in higher ed and as well in education to provide those kind of courses. And I think that's something that whoever the Commissioner of Education is will have to look at as we go forward. I hope I've sort of answered your question. There's a lot more you can say about education, but I've learned that brevity sometimes is better than going on and on. But I think we've got to do that. I also think that we've got to use our community colleges in many ways as an entry point for some kids who are coming out of high school. Not everybody is ready to go to a 4-year institution. And I think we have underserved or underutilized our community colleges in many ways. They're out there, they're all across our state. I was in Walter State yesterday in Sevier County. That's a fine institution. think we have to use those and encourage our students coming out of high school who want to go to those community colleges as well. You know, they're cheaper. The cost of education there is cheaper than at our four-year institutes. It's a cost-saving method for the state, and maybe a more appropriate utilization for many kids coming out of high school.
Yeah, Mike, a question of trade schools. We've lost the trade schools. The trade schools of welding and electrical contracting and that sort of thing. We need it. We're losing. We don't have very many welders anymore. We don't have very many people that are trained in special trades. Is that how would you approach that in your administration?
I apologize. You know, when I start talking about community schools, I should also be talking about technology schools as well, and trade schools. Yes, we need to do a better job of building skills for people who are coming out of high school and learning a trade such as that. College is not for everybody. Community colleges are not for everybody. My father did not have a college education. I'll tell y'all a funny story, and Billy, if it gets back, I'm gonna be mad. My father went to 4 colleges in 6 weeks. And then he was through. And he came back and he went to work in the shoe factory. And eventually he bought a shoe factory, but that's really only because he was dating the boss's daughter, and he broke up with her, and then and he got fired. So he found there's a long story there. He found some financing, and he opened up his own shoe factory. But yes, there is a place definitely for those trade schools. My father started out learning a trade in the shoe factory, and I don't think there's a greater success story anywhere in America than what my father started with as a sharecropper's son to what he became. And we need to realize that those people are definitely out there and have a huge contribution to make to our community and to our economic development. It's essential.
See another hand up next to
Over the last year or two, as far as the math and science partnership, teaching administrators and teachers, K through 12, there's such a high turnover rate, especially in the math and science area. And in rural schools, they don't have the funding for the equipment and things they need to teach. Do you have any strategy or thoughts on how to improve that turnover rate to try to attract people for math and science? And then as far as the funding for the schools that can't afford what they need, I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
Well, you know, Governor Bredesen has fully funded the BEP throughout his administration. It continues to step up. What I'm telling you is one of my priorities will be to continue that program. I will find the resources to make sure that BEP formula gets fulfilled. I think that is one of the keys to attracting teachers, particularly into the rural areas, many of our urban areas. And that's one reason I was alluding to earlier in Union City. One reason Union City always had really good schools is because the city of Union City supplemented their teachers' salaries, and we were able to attract really good teachers into Union City. Thus, we were able to be competitive with communities like Oak Ridge. So, yes, I well understand that. Frankly, I'm more concerned with the availability of teachers in some of these rural areas.